Hey drone technology fans, Bill here. DJI Mavic 2 Pro. What should I do? We'll have that coming right up. Yesterday I had Cliff Taunton on Sunday afternoon Rotor Talk Live episode 9, and we discussed the camera issue on the DJI Mavic 2 Pro. First of all, again, Cliff, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on the show. I want to let you know and I want to let everyone know it's received a lot of positive feedback, and also I've gotten a lot of questions on what I should do with my DJI Mavic 2 Pro. So I went ahead and I took a 12-minute excerpt from yesterday's broadcast. Now, it is unedited, and it does address the camera issue, and it does address what I should do with my DJI Mavic 2 Pro. I'm going to roll a clip here in a second, but I also want to let everyone know that I'm going to go ahead and post links to yesterday's Sunday afternoon Rotor Talk Live. It's the full version, which is over an hour long, and I'll also post links to Cliff's videos. He has a short one which is 22 minutes and a longer one which is approximately 35 minutes. So without further ado, let's roll that clip.
So Cliff, you did some unbelievable testing with this. Why don't you go ahead and explain what you did to everybody?
Well, so my goal was when I first got the Mavic 2 Pro, I took a look at it, and when I was thinking 1-inch sensor, actually it's called a 1-inch type sensor. Believe it or not, the sensor is not 1 inch. It's actually called a 1-inch type sensor because it literally is not really 1 inch. That's why it has the word type in there instead of actually 1 inch. Anyway, it's a little aside there. But so when I started looking at it, I was immediately thinking that it was going to look like the Phantom 4 Pro. And that's kind of what I was expecting. And my very first few flights, I took it back to my editor and went, wait a minute. This does not look like the Phantom 4 Pro. So I started to dig in to find out why, and immediately I thought, okay, we have a softer image in FOV that tells me probably line skipping or pixel binning. That's when I broke out the charts. That's when I started to actually set the scene up and start putting these things up and testing them out one at a time and do a comparison. And that's when I found that it definitely is doing some form of subsampling. Either it's line skipping or it's pixel binning in some form. And so I thought, okay, to show it to a friend of mine, and a friend of mine was like, you know what, you really got to post this. I had no intention of showing this to anybody. So a friend of mine said, you really got to show this. So before I did that, I actually sent it to DJI. I put the whole thing together rather quickly. It's a little, my cuts and my audio wasn't all that great, but I just put it together. I did send it off to DJI and gave them a whole week to review it and let me know what they thought. And it was totally private, and I got 70 hits from DJI employees watching it, and nobody replied back to me. It was pretty silent. And I sent them several emails saying, hey guys, I'm going to put this public. Do you want me to say anything about this? Do you want me to, what do you think about it? And I'll put anything that you guys have to say in the video. Nothing. And the hits just kept going higher and higher and higher. And then I thought, okay, well, it's been a week. Let me go ahead and post it for the whole world to see. And then it just kind of took off from there. So.
And that's one thing here too. And I think, as we talk a little bit more about this, I've seen a lot of comments, and I've seen people, getting ready to jump off the DJI Mavic 2 bridge. And, and I think we had discussed a little bit of this earlier, and that's one of the things, this is still, and I think, coming from you, I think this will really help. This is still a fantastic machine. It's still a great aircraft from DJI.
Absolutely. It is definitely, okay, does it have everything that we wanted? And the answer is no, it doesn't have everything, but it sure has a hell of a lot. And if you look at it in terms of where it's coming from with the original Mavic Pro, this is a giant upgrade in just about every way you could possibly, think about it. It is a fantastic upgrade. I own it. I'm keeping it. I also own the Zoom too, and I'm not letting that thing go. It's a great aircraft. Photography is fantastic. It totally smokes the original, Mavic. In HQ mode, it's got great signal to noise ratio. It has great dynamic range. Even in FOV mode, signal to noise ratio is clean. Okay, and the dynamic range is very, very good. And even in FOV mode, it just doesn't have the pixel count in FOV mode and technically in HQ mode either. But you get dynamic range, you get good clean, a clean image, and it just doesn't have quite the resolution that we were expecting, because we were expecting a Phantom 4. That was what everybody we wanted the Mavic 2 to destroy the Phantom 4 product line. We thought, okay, cannibalize that thing, give us everything, and we got it in a Mavic. Well, DJI didn't want to do that, so they need to have some dividers there between the two. And also, this is not about just the Phantom 4 Pro, it's about the Phantom 5 that they're working on right now. So they're protecting that as well. If they give you full pixel readout in a Mavic, Mavic 2 Pro, then why buy a Phantom 5? So there's a little bit of that going on. But back to what you were saying, it is a great drone. Buy it. Don't get rid of it. Don't jump off the bridge like you're saying. Think about it as a whole product, as a complete product for everything about the avionics and how it flies. Bill, you know that thing is stable.
Yeah.
That thing is ridiculously stable. And think about the imaging and everything else about it. It's such a great aircraft.
I had it up. I live in Florida, Cliff. I don't know if you know that, but we get a lot of wind around here. I live near the Gulf Coast, and wind can pick up during the day like crazy. And I was doing, and I wanted to do a hyperlapse of a sunset, and I wanted to do it stationary. I didn't want to move for that, and the wind must have been at least 25, gusting 35, even more. And it just impressed the daylights out of me, the position that it held, and then watching the camera make the movements to adjust with the aircraft. It just blew me away.
Yeah, definitely. The way the compass works and the way the IMU works in tandem with the way that the gimbal works, the two of them just really, really work so well together. In fact, I got to say, and as a Phantom 4 Pro lover, I mean, you'll notice that even flying, and even with the Inspire 2, because a friend of mine has the Inspire 2, when you fly that, you'll notice that yaw movements, okay, and I kind of like show this way, yaw movements that move this way when you orbit around something on the Phantom 4 and even the Inspire 2 can vary a couple degrees here and there as it makes its way around your point of interest, but not the Mavic 2. The Mavic 2 is literally just rock solid and its compass has got to be incredibly accurate, and it makes corrections so small and so quickly that thing just it's even better than the Phantom and even Inspire 2 in that respect.
Absolutely. And, one of the things, in watching your videos, and I recommend people to watch your videos and to watch them through a couple of times, because, it does take that for, I'm a tech nerd, and it still took me a couple of times to do that. But one of the things that really kind of stood out to me, and Cliff and I talked about this, was when he had the three images and he compared the three images, and you can see exactly what Cliff was referring to when he had images from the three aircraft posted up there. And to me, that test, it just jumped out at me right then, and I said, you know what, this is something. This is something that is it's noteworthy. It's something that is I won't call it significant, but I'll call it noteworthy, and something like Cliff has said. We wanted the whole package. We want to, I'll look for lack of a better term, a mini Phantom 4 Pro. Okay. Well, we didn't get a mini Phantom 4 Pro, but I'll tell you what, like Cliff said, we got pretty darn close.
Yeah, we have a fully loaded, a fantastic drone. Now, you got to understand something too, guys. I mean, the Phantom 4 camera is much larger. It has a bigger back. It has more surface area. And the fact that DJI was able to pack a 1-inch sensor into a tiny cube, a tiny little cube that small, and get it to run without overheating is pretty damn amazing when you really, really think about it. So that is, I would call it a technological marvel, really. I mean, I can't say this for sure, but I believe that is the smallest 1-inch camera in the world. Okay, 1-inch type sensor camera in the world. I don't think Sony doesn't make any cameras that small. They have something called an RX0, which is much larger than that, and it's not 4K. I can't think of any other camera on planet Earth that is that tiny, and they have to do things to keep that chip cool, because you can't have that thing overheat while it's in the air, and it can't shut off on you. So they have to do tricks and techniques to keep it cool, because it is such a tiny little camera to get it to fit on that drone. You can't get a Mavic, a Phantom 4 Pro camera that large to hang off of a Mavic. You know, it's just too big to hang off that thing. So they had to really condense it, and that does. There's a little bit of give and take with that. So you have to, you know, listen. Let's be happy that we got a 1-inch sensor in such a tiny package like that.
Absolutely. And, you know, and one of the things, Cliff, you know, and you just brought it up, and one of the things that I wanted to ask you, and I know I've had some people ask me, you know, as far as cooling down, what does the aircraft do, or what happens inside the camera itself to cool that sensor down? Because, you know, overheat, you know, heating is just bad technology wise. You know, we know that with our PCs. You know, we know that with just about anything, you know, technology based. So what exactly happens, and could you describe and tell us how that does cool down?
Okay, so if you guys are familiar with the DSLR camera world, or if you've ever, probably a lot of people who own Sony cameras in your audience, you'll know that Sony fights heat in their cameras quite a bit, and some of their cameras will shut down after 5 minutes because they get hot. There's a couple of places where heat can come from. One is the image sensor, and one is the video processor. Okay, now the image sensor on DJI drones is down into the camera, of course, but the actual processor is up on top inside the body of the drone. So there's two different heat locations where heat can be generated. The sensor down below, and of course the video processor inside the body of the drone. So those are two different heat locations. Now, when you scan an image sensor, you got to think of it as almost like a copier machine. You put something on a copier machine, and it goes, that light bar just goes zoom like that. It goes across your image or across your document. Image sensors do that too. They scan either from top to bottom or bottom to top. Okay, either way, it depends on how it's programmed, but they scan, you know, in that direction. It's called a rolling shutter. And so what happens is, the faster they scan the sensor, okay, from the first line to the bottom line, like bang, all the way down, okay, the faster they do that, let's say they do it from 20 milliseconds, and they do it from 10 milliseconds, they just scan it quicker, the hotter the sensor gets, okay, because it is actually working harder. They're actually getting more out of it. They're scanning it at a higher clock speed. Sort of, in a way, you can think of it as like a CPU. You know how you turn the CPU clock speed up, the CPU gets hotter. Same thing with image sensors. So, but high clock speeds in a sensor is good, because what happens is, when you have straight lines, when you're scanning quick, the lines stay straight when you pan. But when you start slowing down the image sensor to cool it, clock speed, you start getting that wobbly jello effect you might have seen in some, you know, in many cameras and around. So they could not really slow the clock speed down, because we got to have straight lines. We have to, you know, be able to pan left and right without getting that jello effect. So they couldn't do that. They had to keep the clock speed fast. That makes it hotter. So what's the other way to do it? You can line skip, okay? Using just scan line 1, you skip, you go to line 3, you skip, you go to line 5, and you actually build your image from those lines you got, leaving the gaps in the trash can. And that will also cool your sensor. But imagine taking a jigsaw puzzle, right, with 1,000,000 pieces on it, and if you took out every other piece of the jigsaw puzzle, it already had, you know, the image is already on it. You take out every other piece and throw in the trash can, and you combine and mash the existing pieces back together again. What does your image look like? Now you have these gaps, you know, where things don't quite line up and that kind of thing. So that's the effect of line skipping. And a lot of cameras do it, especially a lot of cameras, DSLR cameras, like Canon cameras, Sony cameras from years past have done lots of line skipping. It is a way to take a high megapixel count and reduce it in a crude way down to a low megapixel count, like 8 megapixel or 8.3 for 4K. That's one way to do it. You can cool your sensor off that way. Pixel binning is a little different. Pixel binning doesn't exactly cool your sensor, but what it does is, it's another crude way of image scaling, where you take clusters of pixels, like a cluster of 8 or a cluster of you know, something else, 12 or something like that, and you averaged all those values into one single value for each block. And what that does is soften your image. So they're doing one or the other. We can't tell which one it is for sure. but they're definitely doing one or the other. And DJI Engineering did send out an email to one of the people who was on watching my video, saying that they admit that they are subsampling. They won't say exactly how they're doing it, and they do admit that it does affect the image quality in FOV. So it does soften the image. It's not something that DJI is saying doesn't happen. What we're seeing is real. What we're seeing is, what DJI is saying is true. But they're saying they had to do it. It was a requirement. They didn't say why. They're just saying it was a requirement on their part. So that's all a mystery right now. Why are they doing it? We don't know.
Again, Cliff, I can't thank you enough. You really explained the situation well. We'll look forward to having you on a future broadcast. I'm very eager to have you on. You were very well received. I did want to let you know that. If you like the content from today's video, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and tell others about the channel. Also, be sure to check out my Facebook page, where I do post daily updates regarding the drone and drone industry and anything DJI, Autel, or Parrot related. Also, be sure to check out my Twitter account, where I do post daily updates, and Instagram as well. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, it's a great day to fly.